South Korea's bold move, removing loudspeakers at the North Korean border. In a significant move that could reshape the dynamics on the Korean peninsula, South Korea has initiated the removal of loudspeakers positioned along its border with North Korea. This decision, announced by the South Korean Defense Ministry, marks a notable shift in the approach to inter-Korean relations. These loudspeakers, which had been installed in the Demilitarized Zone (DMZ) by the previous government, were utilized to transmit music and news broadcasts into North Korea. This was particularly controversial as the North Korean regime, led by Kim Jong-un, maintains strict control over information and media within its borders. The dismantling of these speakers is seen as a practical step aimed at reducing tensions between Seoul and Pyongyang. This initiative is part of a broader strategy led by President Lee Jae-myung, who assumed office in June and has been advocating for a more conciliatory approach towards the North. Interestingly, the North Korean leadership had previously demanded the removal of these loudspeakers, labeling them as psychologically detrimental to those living near the border. However, despite this request, they seem poised to dismiss any diplomatic overtures from President Lee's administration. In a statement made in late July, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un, emphasized that North Korea has no interest in engaging with South Korea or considering any proposals from Seoul. She stated, "The relationship between the two countries has already completely and irreversibly moved beyond the time frame of the concept of compatriotism." Despite these developments, the South Korean military has assured that the removal of the loudspeakers will not compromise its operational readiness. This assurance is crucial, as it reflects the military's commitment to maintaining security in the region while also exploring avenues for peace. As we observe these unfolding events, one can't help but wonder, is this a genuine step towards reconciliation, or merely a temporary gesture? What are your thoughts on the implications of this decision? Do you believe it will lead to a thaw in relations, or is it just a facade? Share your opinions in the comments. South Korea removes K-pop speakers on North Korea border. New government eases tensions. Imagine the tension along the border between North and South Korea, where loudspeakers once blared K-pop tunes and messages of democracy into the night. Now, South Korea is taking those speakers down, marking a significant shift in its approach to improving relations with its northern neighbor. This decision comes as the country's new liberal government aims to ease tensions and pave the way for better understanding. Last summer, South Korea restarted these broadcasts in response to North Korea sending thousands of balloons filled with trash towards Seoul. At the time, officials justified the action as a way to spread hope and light to North Korean soldiers and citizens, claiming the sound could travel up to 15 miles under the cover of darkness. However, with the election of a new president, Lee Jae-myung, who has pledged to mend relations, the broadcasts ceased in June. And now the speakers are being dismantled. Defense Ministry spokesperson Lee Kyung-ho provided some insight into the situation, stating that the fate of the equipment remains uncertain. He did not specify whether the speakers could be reinstalled if necessary. Meanwhile, North Korea has maintained silence on this development. Interestingly, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, recently dismissed South Korea's more amicable stance, suggesting that Seoul's reliance on the United States for joint military exercises means little has changed. This move signals a potential turning point in inter-Korean relations, but it also raises questions about the effectiveness of cultural and informational warfare. Some might argue that the broadcasts were merely a symbolic gesture, while others believe they played a role in shaping public opinion. What do you think? Is cultural influence a valid strategy in diplomatic relations? To provide some context, the division of Korea into two separate states occurred following World War II, culminating in the Korean War from 1950 to 1952, which resulted in the tragic loss of 3 million lives. Since then, South Korea has transformed into a technological and economic powerhouse, while North Korea remains under a totalitarian regime characterized by strict isolation and widespread poverty. In recent years, Kim Jong-un has sought to strengthen ties with Russia, particularly with President Vladimir Putin, in pursuit of economic and military goals. This alliance has even extended to North Korea's involvement in the conflict in Ukraine. As South Korea continues to explore new avenues for peace and cooperation, the future of inter-Korean relations will undoubtedly be closely watched. South Korea's stupid move, removing anti-North loudspeakers. In a significant move aimed at reducing tensions, South Korea has commenced the removal of loudspeakers that have been broadcasting anti-North Korean messages along its border. This action, confirmed by the South Korean Defense Ministry on August 4, 2025, marks a pivotal step taken by the newly elected government of President Lee Jae-myung, who is eager to foster a more peaceful relationship with North Korea. Shortly after assuming office in June, President Lee's administration halted the propaganda broadcasts that criticized the North Korean regime, signaling a desire to rekindle dialogue that has been stagnant for some time. However, North Korea has recently dismissed these peace overtures, expressing a lack of interest in engaging in discussions with the South. The South Korean Defense Ministry described the dismantling of the loudspeakers as a practical measure to help ease tensions between the South and the North. Images released by the ministry depict soldiers actively unplugging and removing the loudspeakers, which were arranged in a wall-like formation. It's important to note that the two Koreas remain technically at war, as the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, concluded with a truce rather than a formal peace treaty. Over the years, both nations have utilized loudspeaker propaganda as a tool to influence public perception and assert their narratives. In 2018, former President Moon Jae-in took a significant step by dismantling these loudspeakers, as part of an agreement to cease all hostile actions that could escalate military tensions. However, the situation shifted last year when former conservative leader Yoon Suk-yeol reinstated the broadcasts, including K-pop music, in response to North Korea sending balloons filled with trash into South Korean territory amid rising tensions. Since South Korea suspended its own broadcasts in June, it appears that North Korea has also ceased its own transmissions, which had been a source of disturbance for residents living near the border. Nevertheless, Kim Yo-jong, the influential sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, recently criticized South Korea's decision to halt the broadcasts, stating that it was not the work worthy of appreciation. This situation raises important questions about the future of inter-Korean relations. Will these measures lead to a genuine thaw in relations, or are they merely a temporary pause in a long-standing conflict? What do you think about the effectiveness of such propaganda measures in influencing diplomatic relations? Share your thoughts in the comments below.